Okay. So, saya mo eh. Alam mo yan? Okay. So, let's continue. So, again, this is your cell wall, and this is the second layer of covering. So, under a microscope, this is what a plant cell looks like. And if you can see, there are two layers of covering here. One is this one, the inner line, and this is the cell membrane. But other than the cell membrane, your plant cells have a second layer, and it is called as the cell wall. So the second layer is the one outside of the cell membrane. Okay, so this is what a plant cell looks like under the microscope. And some cells, especially the cyanobacteria, it also has a second layer of cell wall. So the blue layer here, let me get my pointer. Where's my pointer? Okay, so the blue layer here is what we call as the cell membrane, or it says here on the label, it is the plasma membrane. But other than the plasma membrane, there is a red layer of covering here. And the red layer of covering in this bacteria is what we call as your cell wall. Okay? Before I continue with the next slide, Kuya Reynald, you raise your hand.
Is that bacteria good or bad?
The cyanobacteria is actually a good bacteria. It is the one, the first organism who is able to produce oxygen. So when the Earth started, the Earth doesn't have a layer of oxygen. So all of the animals and all of the plants are living underwater. But because the cyanobacteria was able to produce an abundant supply of oxygen, so it caused oxygen to form in our atmosphere, which allowed us to breathe oxygen in air. Okay, so the cyanobacteria is one of the oldest bacteria, and it is actually, for me, a good bacteria. It's not a pathogen. It's not causing diseases to humans. So generally, I'd say that, yes, it is a good bacteria. Okay? So moving forward, so the function of the cell wall, of course, is that it gives support and protects the cell, very similar to the plasma membrane. So it is an additional protection for the cell. So in an animal cell, they only have one covering, but in a plant cell, it's more difficult for pathogens to invade plant cells because plant cells have two layers of covering. So it's not just one gate. It's like having two gates that you have to enter, or two locks that you have to enter before it can you can go inside. So it's more rigid. It's actually the reason why your plant cells have a more definite shape. The reason why it is rectangular in shape is because there are two layers and it's very rigid, so it can maintain the shape of the cell. Whereas in animal cells, there's only one fluid membrane. So the shape of an animal cell is somewhat irregular, or a bit spherical, but it's very irregular. So the plant cells can maintain its shape more because it has two layers, the cell membrane and the cell wall. Okay, so are we good with the cell wall and the cell membrane? Can I get a thumbs up sign? Okay, so Reynald, do you have a question, or were you raising your thumbs?
Sure.
Yes.
I actually have one question. Does the cyanobacteria can kill pathogens?
No. It can prevent it from entering, but if you are talking about like a one-on-one fight, it depends. When it comes to pathogens, the most important part, the most important aspect when it comes to pathogens is that you keep it from going inside. because once pathogens go inside, they can take over the cell. But if you can keep it outside, then you are relatively safe. You don't need to fight it, just keep it outside, which is basically the idea that we have right now why we are wearing face masks, because we are preventing pathogens from going inside our body. So if the coronavirus is there, as long as it doesn't go inside your body, then it cannot harm you. But once you, like for example, it's hot and you don't want to wear your face mask, once it goes inside your body, then that's the time that it can actually do something harmful for you. Okay? Kadesh, you raised your hand.
Teacher, what's pathogen?
A pathogen is a disease-causing bacteria or a virus. So bacteria or viruses that causes sickness or diseases are called as pathogens.
Bad.
Something like that, yeah. We are not like a plant, Kuya Danstan. What we have is an animal cell. So we only have one layer of protection. That's why we really need to be very precautious, or we have to be careful now, especially now that we are in the midst of a pandemic. We really need to take care of ourselves, because our cells has one layer of protection, and then the rest is up to us. We have to keep our immune system healthy and strong, and then we have to use any other form of protection, such as the face mask and like hand washing, so that we can be protected from these pathogens.
Vitamin C.
Okay? And it's
Your vit-
actually with Kuya Yuri, I think you are outside of the topic. So stop doing the chat box for unnecessary information. Again, we are recording this for your other classmates who are not able to join today, and we are recording it. So we are recording including your chat messages. So if it's unnecessary and not important or completely out of the topic, stop using the chat box. Okay? So it's also one of the reasons why we are encouraging everyone to always wash their hands and to use alcohol, because what the hand washing or what the alcohol is doing is that it is destroying the plasma or the cell membrane of the bacteria or the virus. So once the cell membrane is like destroyed, it means that you can easily kill the virus or the bacteria. That's
Sir,
why
yun yung vaccine?
not a vaccine, hand washing and using of alcohol.
Ah,
When you go out, right, you are always washing your hands, or if you touch something, you use alcohol if hand washing is not available. And the reason why is because we are destroying the cell membrane of the virus or the bacteria. So once the cell membrane is already destroyed, then the cell or the bacteria is already dead. It's easier to kill without their protective covering. So don't forget to wash your hands, not just because of the coronavirus. There are other bacteria and there are other viruses out there. So one of the most important ways that you can protect yourself is by always washing your hands. Yes, Kuya Danstan. Wala na si Kuya Danstan. How about Kuya Reynald?
Sir, the vitamin C.
The vitamin C is to boost your immune system, so that when they go inside, you still have a second line of defense. But the first line of defense will still be hand washing and keeping yourself clean, wearing your face mask, preventing them from going inside, like that. And not just vitamin C, but basically eating healthy food. food that is rich in vitamin C, not just the tablet vitamin C, and sleeping early, making your body strong so that it can fight diseases or pathogens easier. Okay? Last call for Danstan. Kay Danstan, you raised your hand. Do you have something to share or a question to ask? Okay, so I think we can go to our next slide. And the third, this is already number 3, okay? The third organelle that we have is what we call as your cytoplasm. Okay? So earlier, Kuya Yuri said that he doesn't know what a cytoplasm is. So a cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance that is inside your cell. So the pink one here, it's like a fluid, it's like a gel that is inside of your cell. And all of the different organelles are immersed in this gel-like substance that we call as your cytoplasm. Okay? So it's like a jelly. It's like a jello. And in this jello, you will find all of the different organelles inside of your cell. Okay, so this is the red one here. So again, the outer layer is the cell wall. The inner layer is our cell membrane. And then the gel inside of the cell is what we call as your cytoplasm. And if you can see, the different organelles here are floating in your cytoplasm. Now, other than a place where your different organelles are floating around, some of chemical reactions inside the cell happens in the cytoplasm. Okay? So again, this cytoplasm is found in all cells. So all cells, bacteria cells, plant cell, animal cells, they have a cell membrane. At the same time, they have a cytoplasm inside of them. Okay, now let's go to the fourth. This is already the fourth organelle, and this is what we call as your nucleus. So the nucleus is a circular organelle that is found inside of the cell. Earlier, I told you that an animal cell looks like a sunny side up egg. So if our animal cell looks like a sunny side up egg, then the yellow part is actually the nucleus. So if I'm going to draw a sunny side up egg here, for example, it's like irregular in shape, right? You don't know what shape it will take place. But on the center or somewhere here, there is a yellow part, and this is the nucleus of the cell. Okay? So the nucleus of the cell is actually very important because the nucleus of the cell is like our brain. It is the control center of the cell. So it tells the cell if it needs to produce energy. It tells the cell if it needs to get glucose from the blood. So it controls the normal activities of the cell. And what is most important is that the nucleus contains our DNA. So I'm sure you've heard or you're a bit familiar with what we call as the DNA. The DNA is where our genes are found. So they contain the instructions of what hair color or what eye shape or what eye color, our height, everything about our genes, the genes that we inherited from our parents is actually found in this DNA. And this DNA is actually found inside the nucleus. Now, if you can see here in this picture, the nucleus actually has its own membrane. So earlier, in the earlier slides, we said, right, that some organelles have their own membranes, while some organelles don't have their own membranes. Now, the nucleus is an example of an organelle that has their own membrane. What does it mean? It means that the nucleus has its own covering. So there is a covering of the cell membrane here, but the nucleus has its own personal covering, and we call it as the nuclear envelope. So the nuclear envelope here is the yellow circle that surrounds our nucleus. So it has its own covering. But it says there that the nuclear envelope is not a continuous covering. There are actually some holes or some pores in between the nuclear envelope. So if you can see here, I cannot enlarge it, but if you can see here, there are circles here that around the nuclear envelope, and these are holes, or these are circles that allows some things to go in and out of the nucleus, and we call it as the nuclear pore. Okay, so this is the pore here around the nuclear envelope. Okay, so let's move forward. Okay, because the nucleus is very important in the cell, it is also usually the largest organelle found inside the cell. And you have to remember that the nucleus is found in both, in all kinds of cell, especially between plant cell and animal cells. You can find the nucleus as the largest organelle in a plant or animal cell. Okay, let me remove my ugly drawing. Yes, Kuya Yuri. Kuya Yuri, raise your hand.
Sir, di ba po, sir, nakita ang nucleus lang sa eukaryotic, sir, pero hindi naman sa prokaryotic?
Yes, because the prokaryotic doesn't have a nucleus, but they have the DNA. They also have their genes inside, but it's not inside a nucleus. Later on, we will specifically talk about prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. Again, let's focus on the organelles first. Okay, so each cell has a fixed number of chromosomes. So for humans, we have 46 chromosomes in each cell, and these genes are found inside the nucleus. Again, the genes contain the characteristics that we inherited from our parents, starting from your height, your skin color, your eye color, the kind of hair that you have, if it's straight or curly or wavy. All of those are contained in the DNA, and this DNA is found inside the cell nucleus. Again, your cell has its own covering, and we call it as the nuclear envelope. So it has its own membrane. So our nucleus is a membrane-bound organelle. And in between this nuclear envelope, we have what we call as the nuclear pore. These are the opening or parts, or something like a gap in between the nuclear envelope, which allows some materials to go in and to go out of the nucleus. Okay. I think this is very specific. Let's just skip it. Okay. And then inside your nucleus, you have what we call as the nucleolus. Okay. This is your nucleus, the big circle here. It has its own covering, and if you can see, it looks like a Swiss cheese. It has circles in between, which is what we call as the nuclear pore. But inside of it, there is a smaller circle, and we call it as the nucleolus. So there is a drawing here. This is the nuclear envelope. Let's get the laser. Okay. So this is the the nuclear envelope here. It's broken because there are nuclear pores. And then inside, this is the DNA. It's like a thread inside. This is the DNA. And then there is a dense, very dense circle inside. And this is what we call as the nucleolus. So the nucleolus is found inside the nucleus. And the function of your nucleolus is that it makes ribosomes. So the ribosomes are created in the nucleolus. And then after, yes, Jared, that's true. It's like the core of the earth. It's inside. And then once these ribosomes are created in the nucleolus, it will go out of the nucleus. So it will go through the nuclear pore and then it will go out, and then the ribosomes will sometimes attach itself into the endoplasmic reticulum, or sometimes it will just stay in the cytoplasm. Okay? Later on, I will discuss what the endoplasmic reticulum is, but some endoplasmic reticulum has the ribosomes. And ribosomes, again, are created inside the nucleus. Okay? So far, are we clear on that? Are we good on the idea of the nucleus? Can I get a thumbs up sign?
Why does it look like a teeth?
Okay, this one I will discuss later on, Kuya, because this is another organelle that is used for moving or for the absorption. Okay? You are talking about this part, the one that looks like the teeth. It's a cilia. Later on, I will discuss the cilia or the flagella, okay? Are we okay with the nucleus, grade 7? Can I get a thumbs up sign? How about the idea of the nuclear envelope? Are we okay with that?
It's in the participants.
Okay.
I just
How about the nuclear pore? Kuya Danstan, do you have questions about the nucleus, nuclear envelope, and nuclear pore? Okay. So I did not see kasi your thumbs up sign. How about the idea of the nucleolus, the one that creates the ribosomes? Is that clear?
Sir, what's the ribosomes for?
Later. Because ribosome is another organelle that we will learn. Okay? So on the next slides, we will learn all about it. Okay. Next is the idea of our cytoskeleton. So if our body has its own skeleton or its own bones, our cells also has what we call as the cytoskeleton or the skeleton of the cell, which is mainly responsible for keeping the shape of the cell. And the cytoskeleton is usually found under the cell membrane. So under the cell membrane, there are cytoskeleton attached to our cell membrane, and they help the cells maintain its shape, and sometimes, yes, they are also used for moving some organelles. Because this cytoskeleton specifically produces what we call as microtubules. And this microtubules is used for the cell division. When you go to grade 8, you will learn about cell division. And you will see that the cell arranges the DNA or the chromosomes in the middle of the cell. And the only way that they can move these chromosomes to the middle of the cell is because they create these microtubules that will attach to the chromosomes and then move them around the cell. Okay? But the primary function of the cytoskeleton is to keep the shape of the cell. Kuya Reynald, you raised your hand.
sure, I just pressed it.
Okay, so you just pressed it. Okay. So again, here under your cell membrane, you can find microtubules and microfilaments, which is produced by the cytoskeleton to help maintain the shape of the cell. Okay? And then we have what we call as your centrioles. And it says here on the slides that your centrioles are actually found in the animal cell. And these centrioles also produce microtubules similar to your cytoskeleton. But the function of these microtubules is for the cell division, very specific, that they help in the cell division of an animal cell. Again, centrioles are only found in animal cells and not found in plant cells. Next. Okay, so let's just have a very quick overview. So these are the centrioles, and if you can see, they form like lines that will attach to the chromosome, and then they will pull these chromosomes away from each other. So they are helping these chromosomes move around the cell towards opposite poles. So that is the function of the centrioles. Okay, and then we go now to the next organelle, and this is actually a very important organelle. We call it the mitochondria for plural. If there's only one, we call it as the mitochondrion. And the reason why your mitochondria or mitochondrion is very important is because this is the organelle that produces the energy that your cells use. So if we are going to make an analogy of the mitochondria, this is like Zameco, or what's the company in Olongapo, OEDC? They are the ones that produces electricity to your house, right? So that is like the mitochondria. It produces the electricity that you use inside your house so that you can charge your phones, so that you can watch your TV, so that the fridge keeps your food cool inside or cold inside, so that it can keep the vegetables and the fruits fresh inside the fridge. But without the electricity, you will not be able to do all of these things. You cannot wash your clothes because your washing machine needs electricity. Your food will not be kept cold and fresh because the refrigerator needs electricity. You cannot open your electric fan or your aircon. You cannot charge your phone because all of those need electricity. So similarly, our cells also need energy so that it can do all of the things that it needs. And the energy that the cell needs is actually produced by the mitochondria. And that is the reason why the mitochondria is also called as the powerhouse of the cell. And the reason why it's called the powerhouse is because it produces the energy in the form of ATP that our cells need. Okay? And because all cells need energy, it means that the mitochondria is actually found in both the plant and animal cells. Okay, so you can find the mitochondria in both plant and animal cells. Okay? Questions about the mitochondria? So this is what a mitochondria looks like. Okay. Again, the mitochondria has its own membrane. If you can see, the brown covering here is surrounding the mitochondria. So we have learned two organelles that have their own covering. The first one is the nucleus, and the second one is your mitochondria. So both of them have their own covering. They have their own membrane, and the mitochondria also has its own DNA. And the mitochondrial DNA that we inherit actually comes from our mother. So we get more DNA coming from our mom compared to our father. In our father, we only inherit DNA coming from the nucleus, coming from the father. But from the mother, we inherit two kinds of DNA. The nuclear DNA, which is the DNA found in the nucleus, and the mitochondrial DNA, or the DNA found in the mitochondria. So you have more DNA or genes coming from the mother compared from the genes coming from the father. Okay, so boys, it's very important that you choose your future wife very carefully, because your future sons and your future daughters will be getting most of their DNA coming from your future wife. So you have to be very careful in choosing who your future wife will be. Okay? Yes, Kuya Reynald, you raised your hand.
Is the matrix liquid? Kind of looks liquidy in my opinion.
The matrix, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. It's okay. We will not study the different parts of the mitochondria. Just the overview of the mitochondria and what it looks like and what it does inside the cell. Okay? Do we have questions about the mitochondria, grade 7? Mitochondria? Good? Okay. So let's continue. Again, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It produces the energy needed by the cell to do all of the cellular activities that it needs. Okay? Ayan na yan. The DNA in the mitochondria, you inherit from your mother. So ayan na yung sinabi ko kanina. So like I said, you get more genes from the mom compared to your father. Now, you have to understand that in a cell, there are multiple mitochondria or mitochondrion. So in this case, there are 4 mitochondria. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But there is only one nucleus. Okay? So it depends on the kind of cells. If the cells need more energy, then it has more mitochondria. But if the cells does not need a lot of energy, then it only has fewer or only one mitochondrion. Okay? So again, it produces the energy that you use. So coming from the food that you eat, the mitochondria will, your digestive system will get the glucose from the food that you eat. And then the mitochondria will convert this glucose into ATP, or the unit of energy that our body needs. And the mitochondria is only able to do this in the presence of oxygen. That's why other than eating, oxygen is very important inside the body, because the mitochondria needs oxygen to produce ATP, or the unit of energy that our body uses. Okay? And then now let's go to our endoplasmic reticulum. Now you have to understand that inside the cell, there are 2 kinds of endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, before I continue, Kuya Reynald, is there a question?
It kind of looks like it kind of looks perfect.
Okay. Later on, I'll show you a picture and then we can try to identify the different organelles, okay? Okay, so we have 2 kinds of endoplasmic reticulum. We have the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So in this picture, this side here, as you can see, there are circular things attached to the endoplasmic reticulum. And these circular things are actually what we call as your ribosomes. So the ribosomes that was created by the nucleolus, if you remember, it goes out of the nuclear pore. and some of them attaches into the endoplasmic reticulum. So, if there are ribosomes found in the endoplasmic reticulum, then that is what we call as your rough endoplasmic reticulum. So this part in here is your rough endoplasmic reticulum. But there is also an endoplasmic reticulum which doesn't have ribosomes. So on this part here, if you can see, there are no ribosomes in this part. So this is what we call as your smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Okay? So they are surrounding the nucleus. The endoplasmic reticulum, you will find them surrounding the nucleus. And there are, for example here, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, it has ribosomes attached to its surface. Okay? And because they have ribosomes attached to the surface, the function of the rough endoplasmic reticulum is that it makes proteins. So the different proteins in our body, the proteins in our eyes, the proteins in our hair, in our skin, all of those are actually produced or created in the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay? Because they have the ribosomes attached to their surface. And then our, so if you will notice, this is the nuclear envelope, meaning that this is the nucleus, and then immediately beside the nucleus is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Nakadikit siya doon sa nucleus. And then here on this side, medyo mas malayo na siya sa nucleus, is our smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And they don't have ribosomes attached to their surface. Okay? Yes, Kuya Dan Stan. Dan Stan, you raised your hand. Okay, accident po. Okay? So, do we have any questions about the rough endoplasmic reticulum? Wala na. I will ask you grade 7, do you want to continue with the lesson or medyo time out na tayo?
Chair, continue mo na, Chair.
Chair, masasagutan ba yung modules, Chair?
O, Chair.
Kapag hindi mo naturo yan? Siguro hindi.
If you watch the video on K+, then yes, you can. But I'm asking you kung medyo okay pa or medyo napapagod na yung mata.
Okay po, Chair?
Kasi I can